A Werewolf Romance Audiobook. Prologue. I was 7 years old the day my father traded me for a shipment of grain. 7 years old when I learned that hunger makes monsters of ordinary men, that a daughter's worth could be calculated in bushels and weighed on scales meant for livestock. I remember the texture of the contract, rough parchment that scratched against my palm when they made me press my thumbprint in ink. And I remember thinking, with the strange detachment that comes from shock so profound it divorces you from your own body, that this brown stain was supposed to represent my consent. My name is Sage, and this is the story of how I went from cargo to commander, from the girl whose voice meant nothing to the woman whose words would reshape a nation. But let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment my childhood ended, to my 7th birthday. Chapter 1. The trade happened on the first day of spring. I know that sounds like something from a story, like the universe was being poetic, but when you're 7 and your entire existence is being bartered away, your brain clings to these details. Spring. The apple trees were blooming. There were petals in my hair. There had been no celebration that morning. No cake, no song, no acknowledgement that 7 years ago I'd entered this world wanted. My mother had died of fever when I was 4, and since then, birthdays had become just another day of chores and my father's increasingly desperate silences as the drought stretched on and the crops failed again and again. I was in the barn, feeding the last 3 chickens we owned, when I heard the wagon wheels on the gravel drive. My father's voice carried through the thin walls, that particular tone he used when talking to people more important than us. Eager. Diminished. "Stay there," he called to me, not even bothering to come inside. "Don't come out until I tell you." I nodded to the chickens who didn't care. I'd gotten good at being still, at making myself small and unobtrusive. Good at disappearing into corners and not asking for things we couldn't afford, like new clothes or enough food or my mother back. But I could hear them through the gaps in the barn wood. My father and a woman with a voice like cut glass, sharp, precise, elegant. "The girl is healthy?" the woman asked. "Yes, Magistrate Chen. 7 today. Strong for her age. Hasn't been sick a day since the fever took her mother." "And the mark? You're certain?" There was a pause. My father's voice dropped lower, but I heard it anyway. "Appeared on her 3rd birthday. Right shoulder blade. I kept it hidden like the old law said. No one knows except me." My hand drifted to my back, to the spot that sometimes felt warm for no reason. I'd asked my father about the birthmark once. A symbol that looked like a bird with wings spread wide, detailed enough that it seemed drawn rather than natural. He'd told me never to mention it again, never to show anyone, never to ask questions. "Show me." Footsteps approached the barn. My father appeared in the doorway, backlit by spring sun. "Sage, come here." I stood slowly, hay clinging to my dress. Magistrate Chen was tall and severe, dressed in charcoal robes with silver fastenings. Her hair was pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Her eyes were the color of iron. "Turn around, child," she commanded. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my gaze. His hands were shaking. "Do it," he said. I turned. Felt the magistrate's cold fingers pull down the back of my collar, exposing my shoulder blade. The spring air felt like ice on my skin. She inhaled sharply. "It's genuine. A phoenix mark. I wasn't sure I'd see one in my lifetime." Her fingers traced the symbol, and I felt that strange warmth bloom under my skin. "Does she know?" "No. I thought it was better if she didn't." "You thought correctly. Ignorance will keep her alive longer than knowledge." The magistrate's hand withdrew. "The terms we discussed? 20 bushels of grain, 10 of rice, and—" My father's voice cracked. "An assurance she'll be kept safe. That she won't be killed like the others. She'll be kept very safe. Hidden so deep that no one will ever think to look for her. You have my word, she'll work in the textile mills, live with the other laborers, and as long as that mark stays covered, she'll survive." Pause. Which is more than can be said for anyone else born with one in the past 20 years. My heart was hammering now, even though I didn't understand what they were saying. "Phoenix mark. Others killed. Can I say goodbye? Make it quick." My father knelt in front of me, and I saw tears on his weathered face. "Sage, you're going to go with the magistrate now. She's going to take you to the capital, to Iron Haven. You'll work there. You'll be safe." "I don't want to go." My voice came out small, younger than 7. "Papa, please. I'll eat less. I'll work harder." "Oh. This isn't about that." His hands gripped my shoulders. "Listen to me. You can never show anyone your birthmark. Never. Do you understand? If anyone sees it, if anyone knows what you are, they'll kill you. They'll kill you, Sage." "What am I?" I whispered. He looked like he wanted to answer, but Magistrate Chen's shadow fell across us. Time's up. The grain is being unloaded. The transaction is complete. Wait, I grabbed my father's shirt, my small fingers twisting in the fabric. Papa, please don't send me away. I'm sorry I have the mark. I'm sorry Mama died. I'm sorry we're poor. Please. You have nothing to be sorry for. His voice broke completely. He pulled me into a crushing hug, pressing his face into my hair. You are the best thing I've ever done with my life. I'm the one who's sorry. I'm so sorry, little bird. Then Magistrate Chen's hand closed around my wrist, not cruel but absolutely firm, and pulled me away. Any possessions? She asked. Just what she's wearing, my father said hollowly. Actually, he stumbled to the house, returned a moment later with a small object wrapped in cloth. Her mother's. Please, let her keep this. The magistrate unwrapped it. A simple bronze compass on a leather cord, the kind farmers used for navigation. She examined it, deemed it harmless, and handed it to me. I clutched it against my chest, feeling the warm metal, the worn leather. It smelled like my mother, herbs and sunshine and safety. Say goodbye, child. Goodbye, Papa, I whispered. He turned away, his shoulders shaking. Magistrate Chen led me to her wagon. I climbed in, my legs too short to reach the step without help. As we pulled away, I watched my father standing in front of our tiny farmhouse, watched him grow smaller and smaller until the road curved and he disappeared entirely behind the blooming apple trees. I was 7 years old and I had been traded like grain. Chapter 2. The Grey Walls. The journey to Iron Haven took 5 days. 5 days during which Magistrate Chen spoke to me exactly 3 times, to tell me to stay in the wagon, to hurry up, and to be silent. 5 days during which I held my mother's compass so tightly that the edge left a permanent dent in my palm. Iron Haven was nothing like our farm. It was all gray stone and factory smoke, towers belching dark clouds that turned the sky permanent twilight. The walls were high, the gates were iron, and everything smelled like coal and metal and too many people living too close together. We entered through a service gate, away from the main entrance where I glimpsed well-dressed people in colorful silks. Our gate was for cargo. For property. A man met us, squat, muscular, with a face that looked like it had been punched flat. His name was Overseer Grell, and he looked at me the way my father looked at the chickens, calculating their utility, their remaining lifespan. This the Phoenix brat? He grunted. Careful, Magistrate Chin said coolly. She doesn't know. And she won't if you're smart. Seems stupid to keep it from her. It's not your decision. She handed him a folder of papers. She's registered as Sage Thornwood, farm girl, 7 years old, no family, no special circumstances. She works in Textile Mill 3, sleeps in Dormitory 7 and never, undresses in front of others. The mark must remain hidden. What if someone sees anyway? Then you kill anyone who saw and you send word to me immediately. Her voice was flat, matter-of-fact. Those are the governor's orders. I stood very still trying to process this. Kill anyone. The governor. What was I that needed this much hiding? Grell grunted acceptance. You'll work dawn to dusk, he told me, his breath sour as he leaned down. You'll follow every order without question. You'll meet your quota or you'll be punished. The mark makes you special, he practically spat the word, but it doesn't make you exempt from work. Understand? I nodded, mute with fear. Good. He grabbed my arm, harder than necessary, and pulled me toward a massive gray building. Let's see what you're worth. The dormitory was a long room lined with narrow cots, each one thin mattressed and identical. It smelled like unwashed bodies and industrial soap. There were maybe 40 other children, ranging from age 6 to 16, all watching me with dead eyes or active hostility. That one's yours, Grell said, pointing to a cot in the far corner next to a broken window that let in cold drafts. Meals are at dawn, midday, and dusk. Miss a meal you don't eat. Break something you pay for it from your wages. 'Cause trouble you get the rod. Questions? I shook my head. Smart girl. He left, the door clanging shut behind him. The moment he was gone, an older girl, maybe 13 with a scar across her eyebrow, approached. You got anything worth trading? I clutched my mother's compass tighter. Nothing, I whispered. She snorted. They all say that. But she didn't push, just walked away. I sat on my cot slowly, my whole body trembling. This was real. This was my life now. No father, no home, no freedom. Just work and fear and the constant knowledge that the mark on my back was a death sentence if anyone discovered it. I brought the compass up to my face, pressing the cool metal against my cheek the way I used to press my face into my mother's skirts when I was small enough to hide behind her. "I miss you," I whispered to the empty room. "Mama, I don't know what to do." But Mama was dead and buried, and I was here, and there was no one coming to save me. So I opened the compass the way I'd done hundreds of times before, watching the needle spin and settle, always pointing north. My mother had taught me that. No matter how lost you are, she'd said, north is constant. North is sure. I didn't know what direction mattered anymore, but I held the compass anyway, and I made myself a promise. I would survive this. I would endure. And somehow, someday I would be free. I didn't know then how long someday would take. Didn't know that freedom isn't something handed to you but something you have to claim with both hands, even when they're shaking. I didn't know that I was carrying something in my blood that people had killed for, died for, built a nation on top of. But I would learn. Chapter 3. Invisible. That first night, I learned what my new life would be. The wake-up bell rang while it was still dark, a harsh clanging that sent everyone stumbling from their cots. We had 10 minutes to dress, use the communal washroom, and line up for inspection before being marched to the mills. The textile mill was a cavern of noise and heat. Massive looms clattered endlessly, driven by steam engines that hissed and roared. The air was thick with cotton fiber that made breathing feel like drowning. Children and adults worked side by side, their hands moving with mechanical precision, their faces blank with exhaustion. I was assigned to a spinning station, taking raw cotton and feeding it into machines that spun it into thread. The work was mind-numbing and dangerous. If your attention slipped, the machine could catch your fingers, pull you in. I'd seen it happen by the end of my first week. A boy, maybe 9, who'd been too tired to react fast enough. They'd stopped the machine long enough to pull him free, bandaged his mangled hand, and put him back to work the next day. No one complained. Complaint meant punishment. But I discovered something in those first brutal months. I was good at disappearing. Good at making myself so quiet and still that the overseer's eyes passed right over me. Good at blending into the gray walls, the gray clothes, the gray exhaustion that made everyone look the same. The other children barely spoke to me. I was new, unknown, potentially dangerous to befriend. And I didn't try to change that. The less attention I drew, the safer I was. But strange things kept happening. Once, a girl at the loom next to mine collapsed during a shift. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, her body simply giving up. The overseers didn't care. They dragged her aside and told someone else to take her station. But during the brief chaos, I'd knelt beside her. Without thinking, I'd placed my hand on her forehead. I felt something then. A pull, like water finding a crack, like my own energy flowing out through my palm. The girl gasped, her eyes flying open. By the time the overseers noticed I was near her, she was already sitting up, color returning to her face. Back to work, they'd barked, and she had shooting me one confused, frightened glance before returning to her loom. I told myself it was coincidence. She just needed a moment's rest. I hadn't done anything. But my shoulder blade burned warm for an hour afterward. There were other incidents. A boy who'd cut his arm badly on a broken machine part. I'd helped wrap it, my hands shaking, and when I pulled the bandage away to check the bleeding, the wound looked days old instead of minutes fresh. A child crying through the night with a fever. I'd pressed my hand over her forehead to check her temperature, and by morning the fever had broken, though it should have lasted days. Each time I pushed the memories away. Refused to think about them. Because acknowledging what they meant felt dangerous in a way I couldn't name. So I kept my head down, kept spinning cotton, kept surviving, and tried not to notice that something inside me was waking up. Chapter 4. The Boy with Kind Eyes. The Chin family barely acknowledged our existence. Magistrate Chin I saw rarely, always from a distance, always in her charcoal robes with that iron expression. The governor lived in the upper towers, separated from us by class and walls and indifference so complete it was like we existed in different worlds. But the Chin family had 2 children. The elder, Victoria, was being groomed to take over the magistrate's position someday. She was beautiful in the way that predators are beautiful, all sharp angles and calculated charm. She liked watching the overseers discipline workers, like the power of walking through the mills and seeing people flinch. The younger child, Kai, was different. I first saw him in the courtyard during my 3rd month at Iron Haven. I'd been sent to carry water buckets for the garden crews, punishment for not meeting my quota the day before. I'd gotten turned around in the maze of paths and ended up in a section I'd never seen before, near the family's private quarters. He was sitting on a stone bench beneath a cherry tree reading a book. He looked about 11 or 12, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and a gentle face that seemed wrong for this harsh place. There was something soft about him, something that hadn't been beaten down yet. I froze, knowing I wasn't supposed to be there, knowing I should back away before he noticed me and reported me to the overseers. But then he looked up and our eyes met. "Hello," he said. The word hit me like a physical shock. No one here said hello. No one acknowledged us with anything resembling courtesy or kindness. "I'm sorry, young master," I stammered, dropping into an awkward curtsy. "I got lost. I'll go." "You're the new girl," he interrupted, closing his book. "The one they put in Mill 3. Sage, right?" Hearing my name, my actual name, from someone's lips after months of being called girl or worker or nothing at all made my throat tight. "Yes, young master." I kept my head down, blinking furiously against sudden tears. "Just Kai," he said, and when I dared glance up, he was smiling. It was a hesitant smile, like he'd forgotten how and was trying to remember. "You don't have to call me young master when no one else is around. We're practically the same age, aren't we? How old are you?" 7. "Young Moss, Kai. I'm 11. See, not so different. But we were different. He was the governor's grandson. I was cargo. The distance between us was infinite. And yet he was still sitting there, looking at me like I was a person, like my answer mattered. "You should go before someone sees you," I said quietly. "If they think you were talking to me, I'll be punished." Something flickered across his face, shame maybe, or anger at the truth of it. "That's not fair," he said softly. "You're just a child. You should be playing, learning, not working 14-hour shifts in the mills." I didn't know what to say to that. The idea that my situation was wrong, that I deserved something different, was so foreign that I couldn't quite grasp it. "I really should go," I repeated. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because for the first time in months, someone was looking at me like I mattered, and I was so starved for that recognition that I'd risk punishment just to feel it a moment longer. Kai seemed to understand. He didn't push me to leave. Instead, he said, "I come here most afternoons to read. It's the only place I can think without." He stopped himself as if realizing he was revealing too much. "If you ever get lost in the gardens again, you'd be welcome to rest for a moment. If you wanted." My heart hammered. This was dangerous. So dangerous. But also, it felt like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. "Thank you," I whispered. Then, before I could lose my nerve, I turned and fled back through the gardens, my heart pounding, my mother's compass thumping against my chest with each step. I told myself I wouldn't see him again, that he'd forget about the strange worker girl in the courtyard. But I was wrong. Chapter 5. The Library. Kai found me again 3 weeks later. I was in my refuge, a small storage room off the main library where broken equipment was kept. I discovered that the library service entrance had a faulty lock, and if I was careful, I could slip in during my brief rest periods and hide among the dusty crates. I couldn't read. No one had ever taught me. But I loved being near the books, loved running my fingers over the spines, loved the smell of paper and leather and knowledge. Sometimes I'd open one at random and look at the letters, imagining what stories they told, what worlds they described beyond these gray walls. "I thought I might find you here." I jumped, the book falling from my hands with a thud. Kai stood in the doorway carrying a lantern, that same gentle expression on his face. "I'm sorry," I gasped, scrambling to my feet. "I know I'm not supposed to be here. I was just." "It's okay," he said, raising his hands. "I'm not going to report you. Actually, I've been looking for you. I wanted to apologize." "Apologize?" I stared at him, confused. "For what?" "For what my family has done. For this place, for the mills, for children being forced to work like this." He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "It's not right. You deserve better." Tears burned in my eyes, sudden and hot. I trained myself not to cry, not to show weakness, but his kindness was cracking something open inside me. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why are you being nice to me?" He looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because you're a person, Sage. Because kindness shouldn't be something you have to question." I wanted to argue that his situation and mine were nothing alike. He was the governor's grandson, after all, privileged and protected. But there was something in his eyes that stopped me. A loneliness I recognized because I saw it in my own reflection every morning. "My mother died when I was 8, he said quietly. "Not my stepmother, Magistrate Chin, but my real mother. She was kind, gentle, everything this place isn't. She used to tell me that the measure of a person isn't their birth or their wealth. It's how they treat those who have no power to help them in return." He looked directly at me and I saw something vulnerable in his gaze. "I think she'd want me to be kind to you. To see you." The way he said, "see you," like it was a gift he was offering, like visibility was something precious. made something in my chest crack wide open. "I see you too," I said softly, surprising myself. "In the garden that day you looked sad. Like you're wearing a mask for everyone else, but when you were alone you could finally take it off." His eyes widened. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, "No one's ever said that to me before." Maybe no one was looking. Something shifted in his expression. A wall coming down. A decision being made. "Can you read?" he asked suddenly. I shook my head, embarrassed. "Would you like to learn?" I stared at him, my heart suddenly pounding. Yes. But I can't. I have work, and if anyone found out." "No one will find out," he said firmly. "I'll teach you here during your rest periods. We'll be careful." "Why would you do that for me?" "Because everyone deserves to read," he said simply. "And because," he paused, a faint color rising in his cheeks. "Because I've been so lonely in this place for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have a friend. If you'll let me, Sage. If you'll be my friend." Friend. The word felt foreign and precious. Something I'd stopped believing I could have. "Yes," I breathed. "Yes, I'll be your friend." His smile transformed his whole face, made him look younger, less burdened. "Okay then," he said, picking up the book I'd dropped. "Let's start with the alphabet." Chapter 6. The Awakening. And so it began. Over the next 3 years, Kai became my salvation. We met in secret, in the storage room, in hidden corners of the garden, anywhere we could steal a few moments away from the watchful eyes of the overseers and his family. He taught me to read, starting with simple words and gradually building to full sentences, paragraphs, stories. The first time I read an entire page by myself, I cried. Kai pretended not to notice, but he smiled, and it was the warmest, proudest smile I'd ever seen. "You're brilliant," he told me that day. "Sage, you're genuinely brilliant. Has anyone ever told you that?" I shook my head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Well, you are. You learn faster than anyone I've ever known. You ask questions that make me think differently about things I thought I understood." He reached out, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so tender, so carefully respectful, that it made my breath catch. "You're extraordinary." No one had ever called me extraordinary. No one had ever called me anything but burden, worker, disposable. I found myself leaning into his hand before I could stop myself, starved for kindness the way I'd once been starved for food. He didn't pull away. His thumb brushed my cheek so softly I almost didn't feel it, and his eyes held mine. "You matter, Sage," he whispered. "I need you to know that. You matter so much." I wanted to tell him that he mattered too. That these stolen moments had become the only thing keeping me alive. That I thought about him during the long hours at the looms, replaying our conversations, hoarding each smile like treasure. But I was 10 years old and broken, and he was 14 and noble, and the words stuck in my throat. So I just nodded and hoped he understood. He taught me other things too. History, mathematics, the principles of engineering. He told me stories about the old empresses, the Phoenix empresses who had once ruled with wisdom and compassion, who could heal with a touch and unite fractured nations with their words. What happened to them? I asked once during one of our lessons. I was 10 now, no longer the terrified child who'd arrived at Iron Haven, but still small, still learning to believe I could be more than invisible. His face darkened. "The last one was overthrown 18 years ago. There was a coup. Several powerful families rose up, claiming that the Phoenix Empress's focus on welfare and equality was making the nation weak, vulnerable to enemies. They killed Empress Zara and hunted down anyone loyal to her bloodline. Did she have children? They say she had a daughter, but no one knows what happened to her. She'd be about your age now if she lived." He showed me a drawing in the history book. Empress Zara, beautiful with kind eyes and a gentle smile. On her shoulder blade, visible in the formal portrait, was a mark, a phoenix with wings spread wide. Something about her made my chest ache in a way I couldn't explain. "That's sad," I said softly, tracing the drawing. "It is," Kai agreed. "The nation has never been the same. Without the Phoenix Empresses, without that balance of strength and compassion, we've become harsh, cruel. Places like this?" He gestured around the library, but I knew he meant the mills, the whole system that had allowed me to be traded. Places like this wouldn't exist if the Phoenix Empresses still ruled. I thought about that often in the dark hours before dawn when I lay on my cot listening to the other children's exhausted breathing. I imagined a world where children couldn't be traded, where workers were valued, where someone like me could be more than a shadow. It seemed like a fairy tale, too beautiful to be real. But Kai made me believe that maybe, someday things could change. He also made me believe in something else. Something I'd thought died the day my father traded me. He made me believe that I mattered. One afternoon when I was 10, something happened that changed everything. We were in the garden, our usual spot beneath the cherry tree. Kai had brought a book on medicinal herbs, and we were studying together when a bird fell from the branches above us. It hit the ground with a sickening thud, its wing bent at an impossible angle. It made a sound, a high, desperate cry that shot straight through my heart. "Oh no," Kai breathed, kneeling beside it. "Its wing is broken. It won't survive like this. We should probably—" He stopped, his jaw tightening. "We should probably put it out of its misery." "No." The word came out fierce, certain. I knelt beside him and reached for the bird. "Sage, don't. It might." But the bird didn't peck at me. Didn't try to escape. The moment my fingers touched its feathers, it went still, quiet, and I felt it. Not just the bird's pain, though I felt that too, a sharp, bright agony that made me gasp. But something deeper. The bird's life force, its desperate, flickering will to survive. And beneath that, warming my shoulder blade like a brand, my own mark responding. I closed my eyes and let that warmth I'd been suppressing for years finally flow free. It poured out of me like light, like water, like something essential that had been dammed up too long. I felt the bird's bones knitting, its muscles repairing, its fear dissolving into calm trust. When I opened my eyes, the bird was standing in my palm, its wing whole and perfect. It chirped once, a sound of pure joy, then flew away, disappearing into the canopy. I looked at Kai. His face was white with shock. "What?" His voice cracked. "Sage, what did you just do?" "I don't know," I whispered, staring at my hands. They were tingling warm. "It's been happening for a while. Small things. A girl who collapsed from heat. A boy's cut that healed too fast. I thought I was imagining it, but you have the phoenix gift." Kai's voice was filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. "Sage, only those with imperial blood can heal like that. Only the phoenix line. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm just—" "You're not nobody." He grabbed my shoulders, his eyes intense. "Listen to me. That compass you always wear, you said it was your mother's. And your birthmark, the one you hide. I need to see it." My heart stopped. "No one's supposed to. Please, Sage. If you can heal, if you have these powers." His voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "You might be someone very important. Or very dangerous to know." My hand drifted to my shoulder blade, to the mark that burned warm beneath my clothes. Slowly, carefully, I turned around and pulled down the back of my collar. I heard Kai's sharp intake of breath. "Gods," he whispered. "Sage, that's the phoenix mark. Exactly like the one in the portraits. Exactly like Empress Zara's." I pulled my collar back up, my whole body shaking. "What does that mean?" "It means," he ran his hands through his hair, looking almost frantic. "It means you're not a farm girl. It means your father didn't trade you because of the drought. He traded you because someone figured out what you were, and he was trying to save your life by hiding you somewhere no one would ever think to look." The world tilted. "I don't understand." The phoenix line was supposed to be extinct. Everyone with the mark was hunted down and killed. "But if you have it, if you can heal." He grabbed my hands. "Sage, you might be the lost heir. You might be Empress Zara's granddaughter. That's insane." "Is it? Think about it. Your age, your mark, your powers. Your mother dying when you were young, maybe she wasn't sick. Maybe she was hiding, running, and she died protecting you. Your father trading you to Magistrate Chin." His eyes widened. "Gods. Chin. She's one of the families that supported the coup. If she found out there was a phoenix child, she wouldn't kill you immediately. She'd hide you, keep you as insurance, make sure you could never claim what was yours." The pieces were falling into place now, each one more horrifying than the last. "She's been keeping me prisoner," I whispered. "All this time she wasn't just using me for labor. She was making sure I stayed invisible, powerless, buried." "Yes." Kai's voice was anguished. "And if anyone discovers who you are, if you reveal yourself." He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. We both knew what would happen. Chapter 7. The Truth in Bronze. I clutched my mother's compass. I always wore it hidden beneath my clothes, and felt something long dormant stir in my chest. Not quite hope. More like the memory of what hope felt like. Kai noticed the gesture. "You touched that a lot," he observed gently. "The compass. Is there something special about it?" "It was my mother's," I said softly. "It's all I have left of her. Can I see it?" I hesitated, then slowly pulled it out from beneath my shirt. Kai had been kind to me for years now, had risked punishment to teach me to see me. If I couldn't trust him, I couldn't trust anyone. I opened the compass carefully, showing him the face. His eyes widened. Sage, he breathed, pointing to tiny engraved symbols around the compass rim. These aren't decorative. These are imperial seals. Look, he traced them with his finger. Phoenix crest, Imperial House of Zara. This wasn't your mother's because she was a farmer. This was your mother's because she was royalty. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. That doesn't prove. Combined with your mark and your healing ability? He looked up at me, his expression somewhere between awe and fear. Sage, you're not just someone with Phoenix blood. You're the heir. The true heir to the Empire. Stop saying that, I whispered, but I was shaking. Because deep down I knew he was right. I'd always known something was different about me, something that made my father look at me with that mix of love and terror. We need to be more careful, Kai said urgently. If my grandmother suspects, if anyone sees you heal or discovers the mark. I know, I said. I'll be careful. I promise. But careful wasn't enough. Because Victoria had been watching us. Chapter 8. The Sisters' Fury. It was Victoria who found us. I was 10 now, no longer the scrawny child who had arrived at Iron Haven, but I was still small, still easily overlooked, still a worker with no rights, no voice, no protection. Victoria was 15, about to be officially named as Magistrate Chen's successor. She'd grown more vicious with each passing year, her cruelty toward the workers becoming legendary. I'd managed to avoid her mostly, but I always felt her eyes on me sometimes, lingering, calculating. Made my skin crawl. That day I was in the library with Kai. We'd grown careless over the years, too comfortable in our hidden friendship. We were laughing, actually laughing, over something in the book we were reading when the door slammed open. Victoria stood there, her face twisted with rage. So this is where you've been disappearing to, brother? She snarled. Playing teacher with the factory trash. I scrambled to my feet, terror flooding my veins. Kai stood too, moving slightly in front of me, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Victoria. It's not what you think, Kai said, his voice steady despite the fear I could see in his eyes. We were just what? Reading? Victoria laughed, cruel and mocking. But there was something else beneath it, something that looked almost like hurt. How touching. How noble. While the rest of us are preparing for the responsibilities of running this territory, you're playing tutor to property. She's not property, Kai said quietly, dangerously. She's a person. And if you can't see that, then you're exactly what's wrong with this family. Victoria's face went red. What did you say to me? You heard me. Mother, our real mother, raised us to be strong, but she also taught us to be good. To be compassionate. But you were too young when she died. You don't remember what she tried to teach us. For a moment, something flickered across Victoria's face. Pain, perhaps, the ghost of a memory. But it was quickly buried under rage. Don't you dare speak about her, Victoria hissed. You who spent all your time with her while I was being trained to lead. You who she loved more than. She cut herself off, her jaw clenching. So that was it. Jealousy. The wound of a child who felt second best, festering for years until it turned into cruelty. But understanding her pain didn't make her less dangerous. Her eyes fixed on me, traveling over my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear into the floor. Then her gaze dropped to my chest where my mother's compass had slipped free from my shirt in my panic. What's that? She demanded. Nothing, I said quickly, trying to tuck it away. It's just. She was across the room in 3 strides. Her hand shot out and grabbed the compass, yanking it hard enough that the leather cord snapped. No. I lunged for it, but Kai caught me, held me back. Give it back, Victoria, he said, his voice hard now. It's hers. It was her mother's. Give it back. Her mother's. Victoria examined the compass, turning it over in her hands. What would a factory worker's mother be doing with bronze this fine? And these engravings? She squinted at the rim. These look like. She froze, her face going pale. Where did you get this? Her voice was barely a whisper now. My mother gave it to me, I said desperately. It's all I have left of her. Please, please give it back. Victoria's eyes snapped to mine, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw real fear in Victoria Chen's eyes. Bone-deep terror. What was your mother's name? She demanded. I don't know her full name. My father never talked about her. I just called her Mama. Your father? Where did he live? Thornwood Valley in the farming territories. What does it matter? Victoria's hand closed around the compass, and for a horrible moment I thought she was going to crush it. You should have destroyed this, she said, so quietly I almost didn't hear her. Grandmother should have destroyed this the day she bought you. Victoria, what are you talking about? Kai demanded. What's wrong? It's just a compass. It's not just a compass. Victoria's voice cracked, and now I could see it. The fear beneath the rage, the panic of someone whose entire world was being upended. We have to tell grandmother. We have to. She turned and ran from the room, still clutching my compass. I started after her, but Kai grabbed my arm. Wait. Something's very wrong here. She has my compass. It's the only thing I have of her. I know. But Sage, his face was pale. The way she reacted. That compass has imperial seals. If she recognized them, if she tells Magistrate Chin? We found out an hour later. Chapter 9. The dungeon. They came for me at dawn. Not Overseer Grell with his flat face and sour breath. Not one of the other workers. Guards, actual guards with the governor's crest on their chests and weapons at their sides. They dragged me from my cot, ignoring my terrified questions, ignoring the way I fought and pleaded. They hauled me through Iron Haven like a criminal, down into the depths of the complex where I'd never been allowed, to the dungeons. The cell they threw me in was small and dark and smelled like death. The door clanged shut and I was alone in the blackness, my heart hammering, my mind racing. What had I done? What had I done? I curled into a ball in the corner, shaking, trying to understand. The compass. It had something to do with the compass. But what? What could a simple piece of bronze mean that would lead to this? Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time lost all meaning in the dark. Then I heard footsteps. Sage. The whisper was so quiet I thought I'd imagined it. Kai. I scrambled to the door, pressing my face against the bars. Kai, what's happening? Why am I here? His face emerged from the shadows, and in the torchlight I could see tear tracks on his cheeks. Oh, Sage, he breathed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For what? I don't understand. Your mother. His voice cracked. Sage, your mother wasn't just some farmer's wife from Thornwood Valley. The compass you carry, Victoria showed it to our grandmother, and Magistrate Chin confirmed it. Confirmed what? But I was already starting to understand, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. That compass is the personal navigation tool of Empress Zara's daughter. The one who disappeared after the coup. The lost princess. Kai's hands gripped the bars, his knuckles white. Sage, your mother was Princess Lien. She survived the massacre, went into hiding, changed her name, lived as a common farmer's wife, and then she had you. The world tilted. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. She was just my mother. She lived in a tiny cottage. She wasn't a princess. She wasn't. She was her daughter, Kai said, and his voice was full of grief and wonder and terror all at once. Sage, your mother was the lost princess. The one everyone thought died in the coup. She survived. She hid. She protected you. And then, he swallowed hard. And then Magistrate Chin found out. Not immediately, but eventually. Someone must have recognized something, reported it. And instead of killing you outright, which would have been dangerous, martyrs create more problems than they solve, she bought you. Hid you in plain sight. Made you a worker, invisible, powerless. But that would mean, I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't say it out loud. You're the heir, Kai finished. You're the rightful Empress. The Phoenix bloodline didn't die out. It's been here in this factory, working the looms and hauling water and being treated like nothing for the past 3 years. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The cell was spinning and I pressed my back against the cold stone wall to keep from falling. No, I said again, more forcefully this time. No, that's insane. If my mother was a princess, why would she live like we did? Why would my father trade me? Why would? Because he was trying to save you, Kai interrupted. Don't you see? The families that overthrew Empress Zara are still in power. They're still hunting anyone with Phoenix blood. Your father probably didn't know the full truth. Maybe your mother never told him, or maybe she told him just enough to make him understand you needed to disappear. So when Magistrate Chen's agents came looking for children with unusual birthmarks in the farming territories, he made a choice. He traded you to the one place no one would ever think to look for the lost heir, into the household of the very people who'd killed your grandmother. The pieces were falling into place now, each one more horrifying than the last. She was hiding me, I whispered. All this time she wasn't just using me. She was making sure I could never claim what was mine. Making sure I stayed invisible, powerless, broken. Yes. Kai's voice was anguished. The Chin family was one of the 3 houses that led the coup. If anyone discovered the true heir was alive, if you claimed your throne, we would lose everything. Our lands, our title, our wealth, all of it was built on the blood of your family. I pressed my hands to my face trying to process this. My mother, my beautiful, gentle mother who had sung to me and held me and loved me, she had been a princess, had been hunted, had given up everything to keep me safe, and I had never known. Why didn't she tell me? My voice broke on the words. Why didn't she prepare me? Why didn't she? She was protecting you, Kai said gently. As long as you didn't know, you couldn't accidentally reveal yourself. You were just a normal child. Unremarkable. Safe. Safe. I almost laughed. There was nothing safe about the life I'd lived. Nothing safe about being traded, about being worked until I collapsed, about being treated as less than human. But alive. I was alive. And if my mother's enemies had known who I really was, what's going to happen to me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Kai's silence was confirmation enough. They're going to kill you, he finally said, and his voice was thick with tears. Tomorrow night. My grandmother wants it done quietly with no questions. They'll say you tried to escape and fell from the tower wall. An unfortunate accident. No one will investigate the death of a factory worker. He reached through the bars, his hand finding mine in the darkness. His fingers were warm, trembling. I can't lose you, he whispered, and there was something raw in his voice, something he'd never dared say before. Sage, you're the only good thing in this God's forsaken place. The only person who's ever seen me as something other than the disappointing second child, the soft one, the one not fit to rule. His voice broke. I love you. I've loved you since you were 7 years old and brave enough to tell me I looked sad. I love you and I can't watch them kill you. The words hung in the air between us, precious and impossible. Kai. My own voice was shaking. I love you too. But you're the governor's grandson and I'm. You're an empress, he said fiercely. You're the rightful empress and they stole your throne and they tried to break you, but you're still here. You're still standing. And I swear to you, on my mother's memory, on everything I am, I will get you out of here. I will help you take back what's yours. That's treason, I said softly. Then I choose treason. His hand tightened on mine. I choose you. Chapter 10. The flight. I should have been terrified. Should have been begging him to help me, to save me. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Anger. Pure, white-hot, righteous anger. These people, these cruel, greedy people, had murdered my grandmother. Had hunted my mother until she had no choice but to hide, to live in poverty, to die young and afraid. Had bought me, broken me, tried to erase me from existence. And now they thought they could just kill me and move on. No. The word came out steady, certain. No, I'm not going to let them do this. Sage, there's nothing you can do. You're locked in a cell. There are guards everywhere. Even if you escaped, where would you go? Everyone who supported the Phoenix Empresses is dead or in hiding. Then I'll find them. I moved closer to the bars, close enough to see Kai's face clearly in the torchlight. The ones in hiding. They're out there, aren't they? Waiting for a sign that the bloodline survived. It's been 18 years. Most people think the old ways are dead. Even if you found them, even if you convinced them who you are, my grandmother has armies, allies, wealth beyond measure. You're one girl and untrained, powerless. I'm not powerless. I touched my chest where the compass should have been, where I could still feel the phantom weight of it. I have the Phoenix gift. I can heal. I can calm. And I carry the blood of Empress Zara. That has to mean something. It means they'll hunt you, Kai said desperately. It means every moment you're alive you're in danger. Sage, please, let me help you escape tonight. We can get you far away from here. You can change your name, disappear, live a quiet life somewhere they'll never find you. Like my mother did? I shook my head. She spent her whole life running, Kai. She died young and afraid and she never got to see the world she should have inherited. I won't do that. I won't hide. Then you'll die. Maybe. I pressed my hand against his through the bars, feeling his warmth, his strength. But at least I'll die as myself. As Sage, daughter of... I paused, realizing I didn't even know my mother's real name. Lien, Kai supplied softly. Princess Lien. She was famous for her healing gifts, for her compassion. They say she could calm the most violent rage with just a touch, that she could sense pain and fear and bring peace. The common people loved her. Lien. My mother's name was Lien. Then I'll die as Sage, daughter of Lien, granddaughter of Zara. And maybe that will be enough to wake something up in this nation. To remind people that we were better once. That we could be better again. Kai was crying now, openly, not bothering to hide it. I don't want you to die, he whispered. Then help me escape, I said simply. Please, Kai. I know what I'm asking. I know it means betraying your family, giving up everything. But please, if you love me. I do, he interrupted fiercely. I love you more than I love safety, more than I love comfort, more than I love the idea of who I'm supposed to be. He wiped his eyes, straightening his shoulders. Of course I'll help you. I'll get you out of here tonight. And then we run together. Together, I agreed, my heart swelling with something that felt dangerously close to hope. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against the bars, and I did the same. For a moment we just breathed together, sharing this tiny connection across iron and stone. You're going to be a magnificent empress, he said finally. Terrifying and magnificent. I'm going to be a living empress first, I pointed out. Everything else comes after that. Right. Okay. He straightened, his expression hardening into determination. The guards change at midnight. I can get the keys. There's a service tunnel that leads from the dungeons to the old east gate. It hasn't been used in years, but it should still be passable. From there we can get to the stables, take horses, be miles away before anyone notices you're gone. What about you? When they discover I'm missing, they'll know you helped. I'll be gone too. We disappear together, Sage. Partners in treason. Despite everything, I smiled. Partners in treason. I like the sound of that. Chapter 11. Blood and Starlight. The escape was supposed to be quiet, clean, simple. It was none of those things. Kai got me out of the cell without trouble. The guards were drowsy, inattentive, not expecting any real threat from a locked-up 10-year-old. We made it through the tunnel, our footsteps echoing in the narrow stone corridor, the lantern Kai carried casting wild shadows on the walls. We were almost to the east gate when we heard the shout behind us. The prisoner is escaping. Sound the alarm. Run. Kai grabbed my hand and we ran. The east gate was a ruin, half-collapsed, open to the night sky. We could see stars, thousands of them, cold and distant and beautiful. We didn't stop to admire them. The stables were across an open courtyard. 50 yards. Might as well have been 50 miles. When we get to the horses, take the dappled mare, Kai said, breathing hard. She's the fastest. Don't wait for me. Just ride north toward the Mistwood Forest. There are people there who might help. I'm not leaving you. You have to. If they catch you, you die. If they catch me, I'm the governor's grandson. They won't kill me. They'll just lock me up for a while. Sage, you have to survive. You're what matters. You're what this is all for. We burst into the stables. The horses whinnied, startled by our sudden entrance and the commotion behind us. Kai moved quickly, expertly, saddling the dappled mare with practiced hands. Up, he ordered, and I scrambled onto the horse's back. Remember, north. Don't stop. Don't trust anyone until you're sure. And Sage. He looked up at me, and in the lamplight he looked older than his 14 years. Beautiful and brave and breaking. I meant what I said in the dungeon. I love you. I'll find you again. I swear it. Even if it takes years, even if I have to cross the entire nation, I'll find you. Kai, my voice cracked. He reached up and I leaned down, and for one perfect stolen moment, our lips met. It wasn't a grand kiss. Wasn't practiced or smooth. We were both shaking, both terrified, both tasting salt from tears we didn't have time to cry. But it was real. It was ours. It was goodbye and promise and love all wrapped into one desperate touch. When we pulled apart, his hand lingered on my cheek. Go, he whispered. Change the world. Kai. Go. He slapped the horse's flank and she bolted. I looked back once, just once, and saw him standing in the stable doorway, lantern in hand, placing himself between me and the guards pouring into the courtyard. Buying me time. Saving me. Loving me enough to let me go. Then the horse carried me into the darkness, and Iron Haven disappeared behind me, and I was alone with the stars and my grief and my rage. Chapter 12. The Phoenix Rises. I rode until the mare was lathered and stumbling. Rode until my legs ached and my hands were raw from gripping the reins. Rode until the sky began to lighten in the east and I knew I had to find shelter or risk being spotted. I found a cave, little more than an overhang really, and led the mare inside. She was shaking with exhaustion and I was in no better shape. I collapsed against the stone wall, my whole body trembling. I was free. I was alone. I was terrified. And I was angry. So angry. I thought about my mother, about how she must have felt running just like this. Scared, exhausted, desperate. She'd been pregnant with me. Had she touched her belly and wondered what kind of world she was bringing me into? Had she hoped I would be strong enough to survive what she couldn't? I touched my own back where the phoenix mark burned warm beneath my clothes. For a moment, despair threatened to drown me. What was I doing? I was 10 years old. I had no money, no allies, no proof of my identity except a birthmark that would get me killed if anyone saw it. I was exactly what Kai had called me, an untrained child with nothing but impossible dreams. Then I remembered the way Magistrate Chen's face had looked when she bought me. The cold calculation, the satisfaction of believing she'd buried a threat. I remembered Victoria's fear when she recognized the compass. I remembered 3 years of being invisible, being beaten down, being told I was worthless. And I felt something stir inside me. Something that had always been there, maybe waiting, coiled like a spring, compressed by years of cruelty until it was dense and hard and powerful. It started in my chest, a warmth that spread outward through my arms, my legs, my fingertips. The aches from the ride began to fade. The cuts on my hands from gripping the reins started to close. I gasped, pulling my hands up to stare at them in the growing light. The wounds were healing, not slowly, not the way wounds normally heal, but quickly, visibly, skin knitting back together before my eyes. What? I breathed. The warmth intensified and suddenly I felt it. Everything. The mare's exhaustion and fear. The small creatures hiding in the rocks around me, watching warily. The trees beyond the cave entrance, their roots deep in the earth, their branches reaching for the sun. I felt connected to all of it, like the world was alive and breathing and I was part of its breath. This was the phoenix gift. The power that had made my grandmother an empress, that had made my mother beloved. It hadn't manifested fully before because I'd been suppressed, broken down, taught to be small and powerless. But now that I knew who I was, now that I'd claimed my identity, now that I'd chosen to fight instead of hide, it was waking up. And it was magnificent. I stood slowly, carefully testing this new awareness. I could feel the mare's pain, a strain in her front left leg, exhaustion in every muscle. Without thinking, I placed my hand on her neck. The warmth flowed out of me and into her. Her breathing steadied. The tension left her frame. She turned her head to look at me, and I swear there was recognition in her eyes. Understanding. We're going to be okay, I told her. Told myself. We're going to survive this. I looked north, toward the Mistwood Forest, toward the people Kai said might help. And then we're going to take back what's mine. The mare whickered softly as if she understood. As if she agreed. I smiled, actually smiled, for the first time since the day my father traded me. Let them try to stop me now. Chapter 13. Mistwood. The journey north took 4 weeks. 4 weeks of traveling at night, hiding during the day. 4 weeks of pushing my newly awakened powers to their limits, healing the mare's exhaustion each morning so we could ride again each night. 4 weeks of learning what my body could do when survival depended on it. But it was more than survival that drove me forward. It was purpose. I passed through villages where children with hollow cheeks watched me with dead eyes. I saw workers being beaten in the streets, their cries ignored by passers-by who had learned that compassion was weakness. I saw fear and cruelty and despair everywhere I looked. This was what my grandmother's empire had become. This was what 18 years of rule without the Phoenix Empress's balance had wrought. In one village I couldn't help myself. A man was being whipped in the town square, some minor offense, some excuse for cruelty. The crowd watched with dead eyes, too afraid or too broken to intervene. I dismounted and walked forward. Stop, I said quietly. The guard with the whip turned, sneering. And who are you two? I touched his wrist. Let my power flow. Not to hurt, never to hurt, but to show him. To let him feel what the man felt. The pain, the fear, the shame of being reduced to nothing in front of neighbors who once knew your name. He dropped the whip, his face going white. He stole bread to feed his family, I said softly. Is that worth this? I helped the man up, healing the worst of the wounds on his back. He stared at me with wonder and terror in equal measure. Who are you? He whispered. Nobody yet, I told him. But someday I'm going to make sure this never happens again. Word of the incident spread. By the time I reached the Mistwood Forest, I was no longer just a runaway worker. I was a story, a rumor, a hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The forest was ancient and dark, its canopy so thick that midday looked like twilight. I dismounted and led the mare forward, following an instinct I didn't quite understand. There was something here. Someone. I could feel them watching. I know you're there, I called out, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm not here to cause harm. I'm looking for people who remember. Who still believe in the old ways. Silence stretched. Then, slowly, figures emerged from the shadows. 12, maybe 15 of them, dressed in worn leather and homespun, weapons at their sides. They looked hard, weathered, like people who had been fighting a losing battle for far too long. An older woman stepped forward. She had gray streaking through her dark hair and scars crisscrossing her face, one across her left cheek, another along her jawline. A warrior's face. A survivor's face. "Who are you?" she demanded, her hand on the hilt of her sword. This was it. The moment of truth. I took a deep breath, touching my chest where the compass should have been. "My name is Sage," I said clearly, letting my voice carry. "I am the daughter of Princess Lien, the granddaughter of Empress Zara, and I've come to take back my throne." The woman's eyes widened. For a long moment no one moved. No one breathed. Then she dropped to one knee. One by one the others followed, their heads bowed, their fists pressed to their hearts in the old salute. "We've been waiting for you," the woman said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "For 18 years we've been waiting. Welcome home, Your Majesty." Chapter 14. Becoming the Phoenix. I stood there, surrounded by these strangers who were kneeling before me, who were calling me Majesty, who were looking at me like I was their salvation. And I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. The responsibility, the expectation, the sheer impossibility of what I was about to attempt. But I also felt something else. Belonging. "Please stand," I said gently. "I'm not your empress yet. Right now I'm just a girl who needs your help. But together," I looked at each of them in turn, "together maybe we can be something more. Maybe we can change this nation. Not with violence, not with more blood, but with truth. With justice. With the reminder that we were better once and we can be better again." The scarred woman rose, a fierce smile on her face. "Then let's begin, little Empress. My name is Commander Thorn and I served your grandmother before the coup. Let's show them what they tried to bury." They took me to their camp, a hidden settlement deep in the forest. Dozens of rough shelters built into the trees and hillsides. There were more people than I'd expected, 70, maybe 80, all of them refugees from the old regime. All of them waiting. That first night they gathered around the fire to hear my story. I told them everything. Being traded at 7. 3 years of factory work. Kai's kindness. The discovery of who I really was. My escape. When I finished there was silence. Then an old man with a long white beard stood. "I was your grandmother's chief advisor," he said, his voice cracking. "I delivered your mother the night she was born. And I was there," his face crumpled. "I was there the night of the coup. I tried to save her, your grandmother, but there were too many of them. And she made me flee. Made me survive to tell the story. To wait for her bloodline to return." He knelt before me, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "I never thought I'd live to see this day. But you're here. You're real. Princess Lien's daughter. The Phoenix heir. Show us," someone called from the crowd. "Show us you have the gift." I looked at Commander Thorn. She nodded encouragingly. I stood and walked to the old advisor. "What's your name?" I asked gently. "Aldrich, Your Majesty." "Just Sage," I corrected. "And you're in pain, Aldrich. Your joints, your back. Years of running, of sleeping on hard ground. Of grief carried in your bones." His eyes widened. "How did you?" I placed my hands on his shoulders and let the warmth flow. Not all of it, I was still learning control, but enough. Enough to ease the worst of his suffering. Enough to let him stand straighter, breathe deeper, remember what it felt like to not hurt. When I stepped back he was crying again, but this time in wonder. "She has it," he breathed. "The Phoenix gift. Just like Empress Zara. Just like Princess Lien." He turned to the crowd. "This is our Empress." The camp erupted in cheers. Chapter 15. The Making of a Revolution. And so my real education began. Commander Thorn was a stern teacher, but fair. She'd been one of my grandmother's personal guards, trained in both combat and strategy. She taught me that healing wasn't the only power a Phoenix Empress could wield. Your grandmother could walk into a room full of hostile warlords and have them working together within minutes, Thorn told me during one of our early lessons. It wasn't manipulation. It was understanding. She could feel what they felt, their fears, their anger, their pain, and address it. Meet them where they were. That's what made her unstoppable. She taught me to extend my awareness, to sense the emotions of those around me. It was exhausting at first, like trying to hear 100 conversations at once. But gradually I learned to filter, to focus, to understand the currents of feeling that moved through any group. "This is how you'll lead," Thorn said. "Not with force. With empathy. With the ability to bring people together instead of tearing them apart." Aldrich taught me the history they'd preserved. The names of those who had been loyal to my grandmother. The locations of hidden supporters scattered throughout the nation. The old rituals and ceremonies that had bound the Phoenix Empresses to their people. "You're not just reclaiming a throne," he explained one evening, his gnarled hands tracing maps by firelight. "You're reclaiming a way of life. A philosophy. The understanding that true strength comes from balance, not domination." Others taught me practical skills. How to move through the forest silently. How to identify safe houses and loyal supporters. How to speak with authority. How to inspire. How to lead. But the most important lessons came from the people themselves. I began traveling with small groups to nearby villages, not announcing who I was, that would be too dangerous, but simply helping. Healing the sick. Calming frightened children. Easing the pain of those who had been broken by the harsh new world. Word spread faster than I'd expected. Stories began to circulate of a young girl with healing hands, of someone who spoke with wisdom beyond her years, of a person who had the phoenix gift, which hadn't been seen since Empress Zara's death. And people began to hope. In one village, an elderly woman grabbed my hand as I was leaving. "Are you her?" she whispered urgently. "Are you the lost princess's daughter? The true heir?" I looked into her eyes and saw desperation there. A lifetime of suffering waiting for salvation. "Would it matter if I was?" I asked gently. "It would mean everything," she said fiercely. "It would mean my granddaughter might grow up in a world where being born poor doesn't mean being worthless. It would mean things could change." I squeezed her hand. "Then keep hoping. Keep believing that change is possible. And when the time comes, be ready." 8 months passed. Then a year. Then 18 months. I was 12 now, nearly 13. No longer the frightened child who'd escaped Iron Haven, but not yet the Empress I needed to become. Still learning, still growing, still gathering strength. The movement was growing too. Hundreds of people now, spread across the nation. Not an army, I'd been firm about that. We wouldn't win through violence. But a network. A web of supporters waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. And then, on a cold autumn morning 2 years after my escape, Kai found me. Chapter 16. Reunion. I was in a clearing near our main camp, practicing with my powers, trying to extend my awareness further, to sense life beyond the immediate area. It was delicate work requiring complete focus. That's probably why I didn't sense him approaching. "You've gotten better at that." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. He stood at the edge of the clearing, looking worn and travel-stained and more beautiful than I remembered. Taller now, he'd grown in the 2 years since I'd seen him, filled out across the shoulders. His face had lost its boyish softness, sharpened into something more angular, more adult. But his eyes were the same. Gentle and sad and warm. "Kai," I breathed. For a moment we just stared at each other. 2 years of separation stretching between us like a chasm. So much had changed. So much had happened. Then he smiled, that same slightly sad smile I remembered, and the distance collapsed. I was running before I knew I'd decided to move. He caught me in his arms, lifting me off the ground, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. I didn't care. I wrapped my arms around his neck and buried my face in his shoulder and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for 2 years. Relief, joy, love, the overwhelming gratitude of having him here, alive, safe. I thought. My voice cracked. "I didn't know if you were okay. If they'd hurt you for helping me. I wanted to find out, but it was too dangerous to go back, and I..." "Shoo," he murmured into my hair. "I'm here. I'm okay. They locked me up for a few months, but I escaped. I've been looking for you ever since." "A few months?" I pulled back to look at his face. "It took you 18 months to find me? You're good at hiding," he said wryly. "And I had to be careful. My grandmother has people everywhere watching for any sign of you. I had to take the long way around, follow rumors and whispers." His hand came up to cup my cheek. "But I told you I'd find you. Even if it took years." I leaned into his touch, my eyes closing. "I missed you," I whispered. "I missed you too." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "Every day. Every moment." When I opened my eyes, he was looking at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Not like he used to look at me, with the careful protectiveness of someone older watching over someone younger. This was different. This was the way someone looks at an equal. At someone they see not just as a friend but as... "You've changed," he said softly. "You're..." He seemed to struggle for words. "God's sage, you're extraordinary." "I'm still me," I said, suddenly shy. "No." His other hand came up, framing my face. "You were always extraordinary. But now you believe it. I can see it in the way you stand, the way you hold yourself. You're not hiding anymore." "I can't afford to hide." Too many people are depending on me. I know. His eyes searched mine. Thorn told me everything. About the movement you're building, the people you've helped, the hope you've given them. A slow smile spread across his face. You're doing it? Actually doing it? Becoming the Empress you were meant to be. I haven't done anything yet, I protested. I'm still just. You're not just anything. His voice was fierce now. Sage, do you know what they're calling you out there in the villages? The healing hand. The hidden phoenix. The Empress who will come. You've given people something they haven't had in 18 years. You've given them hope. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. I'm scared, I admitted. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail them? You won't. He said it with such certainty, such absolute faith, that I almost believed him. You're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived being traded as a child. You survived 3 years at Iron Haven. You escaped execution and built a revolution from nothing. If anyone can do this, it's you. Not from nothing, I corrected. I had help. I had you. Something shifted in his expression, softened. You'll always have me, he said quietly. For as long as you want me. In whatever way you want me. The air between us suddenly felt charged. Electric. Kai, I breathed. I know we're young, he continued, his voice low and intense. I know you have a throne to reclaim and a revolution to lead. I know I'm the grandson of your enemy, that my presence might complicate things. But Sage, his forehead pressed against mine. I've loved you since you were 7 years old. And if you feel even a fraction of what I feel. I do, I interrupted. God's Kai, I do. I've thought about you every day. Wondered if you were safe. Wished you were here. I love you. I've loved you for so long I can't remember not loving you. Then let me stay, he whispered. Let me fight beside you. Not as the governor's grandson. Not as anything except myself. Just Kai who sees you, who loves you, who wants to help you change the world. I pulled back just enough to see his face clearly. It's going to be dangerous. When we make our move, there's a good chance we'll both die. I'd rather die fighting beside you than live 100 years without you. That's incredibly dramatic, I said. But I was smiling. I've had 2 years to rehearse it, he admitted, and then he was smiling too. And suddenly we were both laughing, the tension breaking into something lighter, easier. When the laughter faded, he was still holding my face, still looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. So, he asked, do I get to stay? Try to leave and I'll hunt you down myself, I told him. Is that a royal command? It's a promise. He kissed me then. Not the desperate, terrified kiss of our escape, but something slower, deeper. A kiss that said I'm here, I found you, I'm not going anywhere. A kiss that tasted like homecoming and hope in the future we were going to build together. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were bright with happiness. Welcome to the revolution, Kaichin, I said. Honored to be here, Your Majesty. Don't call me that. Apologies, my Empress. Kai. He kissed me again to shut me up, and I decided I could live with the title if it meant this. Chapter 17. The Tipping Point. Kai's arrival changed everything. He brought information, detailed intelligence about the ruling family's strengths and weaknesses, their alliances, their fears. He knew which houses were most vulnerable to pressure, which ones might be swayed to our cause, which ones would fight to the death to protect the status quo. My grandmother is the linchpin, he explained during a war council with Thorn and the other leaders. The Chin family is one of the most powerful houses that supported the coup. If we can break her hold, expose what she did, reveal that she knowingly bought and imprisoned the true heir, the other families will panic. They'll turn on each other trying to save themselves. Exposing her exposes you, I pointed out. You're her grandson. People will assume you're complicit. Let them. Kai's jaw was set. I'd rather be judged for the truth than protected by lies. Thorn studied him with her scarred face. You've changed, boy. When you first showed up, I wasn't sure if you were genuine or a spy. But you've got steel in you now. I learned from the best, Kai said, glancing at me. Over the next months, we refined our strategy. We wouldn't attack, wouldn't lay siege, wouldn't give the ruling families any excuse to paint us as violent rebels who needed to be crushed. Instead, we would simply reveal the truth. Walk into the capital city in broad daylight, thousands strong, and show the people who I was, what I could do, what their nation could become. It's risky, Aldrich warned. If the crowds turn against you. They won't, I said with more confidence than I felt. We've been laying the groundwork for 2 years. The stories have spread. The hope has taken root. They're ready to believe. And if you're wrong? Thorn asked bluntly. Then I die trying, I said simply. But I don't think I'm wrong. I've been among the people. I've felt their pain, their desperation, their hunger for change. They're not going to side with their oppressors when given a real alternative. Kai took my hand under the table, squeezing gently. A silent message, I'm with you. Whatever happens. We chose the capital city of Stormhaven for the confrontation. The place where my grandmother had been murdered, where the coup had begun, where it would end. We spent weeks preparing, sending messengers to our network of supporters, coordinating the gathering, making sure everyone understood. This was not violence. This was revelation. The night before we left for Stormhaven, I couldn't sleep. I stood outside my shelter, looking up at the stars, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Kai found me there. Nervous? He asked, coming to stand beside me. Terrified, I admitted. Good. That means you understand what's at stake. He was quiet for a moment. My real mother used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. Wise woman. She would have liked you, I think. He turned to face me. Sage, I need to tell you something before tomorrow. Before everything changes. My heart clenched. What is it? If this works, if you actually reclaim the throne, become Empress, you're going to have to make hard choices. Political alliances, strategic marriages, the kind of decisions that put the nation's needs above personal desires. He took a breath. I need you to know that I understand that. I won't hold you to any promises we've made. Won't stand in the way of what's best for your people. Even if that means... Stop, I interrupted. Just stop. Yes, I'm going to be Empress. Yes, I'll have to make hard choices. But Kai, I grabbed his face, making him look at me. You're not a hard choice. You're the easiest choice I've ever made. You're the person who saw me when I was nothing. Who loved me when I couldn't love myself. Who gave up everything to stand beside me. I don't care what political advisors say. I don't care what traditions demand. If I'm Empress, then I get to make the rules. And my rule is that I choose you. Always. Sage. Always, I repeated fiercely. Tomorrow we change the world. But you and me, we don't change. We're constant. We're sure. We're forever. Understand? He kissed me instead of answering, and I tasted salt on his lips. Tears, mine or his, I couldn't tell. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Forever, he agreed. Even if it's a very short forever. It won't be, I said. We're going to win. How do you know? Because the alternative is unacceptable. He laughed, a real laugh, bright and surprised. Gods, you're magnificent when you're imperious. Get used to it, I told him. I'm about to become a lot more imperious. Chapter 18. The Empress's March. We entered Stormhaven at midday, when the sun was high and bright and impossible to ignore. 4,000 of us walking in orderly columns. Not marching, we weren't an army. Walking like ordinary people with every right to be there. We carried no weapons. We sang instead, the old songs that hadn't been heard in 18 years. Songs of unity and healing and hope. Songs that the older citizens remembered from their childhoods, when the Phoenix Empresses ruled and the nation was whole. The city guard didn't know what to do with us. We weren't attacking, weren't threatening, just walking, singing, filling the streets with our presence. People came out of their homes to watch. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They lined the streets, staring at us with expressions ranging from confusion to wonder to something that looked dangerously like hope. By the time we reached the Governor's Square, half the city had come out to see. I stood before the grand palace where my grandmother had ruled, where the throne that should have been my mother's sat empty, and I felt the weight of history pressing down on me. This was it. The moment everything changed, or the moment I died trying. Magistrate Chin was there, of course. She stood on the palace steps, surrounded by guards, her face pale with recognition and rage. You, she breathed loud enough for the crowd to hear. Me, I agreed, my voice carrying across the square. I'd learned to project, to speak with authority, to sound like an empress. Magistrate Chin, it's been 5 years since you bought me. Since you paid my father 20 bushels of grain for a 7-year-old child and turned her into a factory worker. Do you remember? The crowd murmured, shocked. You were a laborer, she blustered. An orphan's child. I gave you work. I gave you shelter. You gave me chains. My voice rang out and I felt my power rising, lending strength to my words. You knew exactly who I was. You knew that you had purchased the granddaughter of Empress Zara, the rightful heir to the throne. And you tried to bury that truth, to erase me because my existence threatened your power. She's lying. Chin turned to the crowd. She's a mad child. A delusional factory worker with delusions of Am I? I stepped forward and the crowd parted before me like water. Then explain this. I raised my hands and let my power flow. It started as a warmth, spreading out from me in waves. Every person it touched gasped. I could feel their pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, and I eased it. Not completely. I wasn't strong enough for that. But enough. Enough to remind them what it felt like to not hurt, to not be afraid, to not be alone. This was the Phoenix gift. This was what my grandmother had possessed, what my mother should have passed on to the nation. This was what they had tried to destroy. The Phoenix bloodline is not dead, I said, and my voice was full of power and grief and determination. It survived. Against all odds, through all cruelty, it survived. I am Sage, daughter of Lien, granddaughter of Zara, and I have come home. The square erupted. Some people fell to their knees. Some wept. Some shouted in joy or disbelief. And Magistrate Chin pulled a dagger from her belt and lunged. She was fast, desperate, a cornered animal with nothing left to lose. But Kai was faster. He stepped between us, catching Chen's wrist, twisting until the dagger fell clattering to the stones. The guards moved to intervene, but Commander Thorne's forces were already there, creating a protective circle around me. It's over, grandmother, Kai said, and his voice was cold. Final. She is who she says she is. And you've lost. Traitor, Chin spat. You're my grandson. I'm my mother's son, Kai interrupted. And she would be ashamed of what you've become. What you've done. Chen's face twisted with rage and something that might have been pain. I won't bow to some factory brat. I won't. You will. My voice cut through the chaos. Not loud, not shouting, but absolute. Commanding. The voice of an empress. I walked forward through the circle of guards until I stood directly before Magistrate Chin. She was on her knees now, whether from Kai's hold or her own shock I couldn't tell. I reached out with my gift, touching her mind. Not to control, not to break, just to show her truth. I showed her my mother, young and terrified, running through the night with me in her womb. Showed her me at 7, crying as she led me away from my father's farm. Showed her every moment of pain, every indignity, every time I'd been worked until I collapsed or treated as less than human. Showed her what she had done. She collapsed completely, shaking, her face ashen. I'm sorry, she whispered. Gods, I'm sorry. And I believed her. Feeling her anguish, her shame, her horror at seeing her actions through my eyes, I believed her. But belief didn't equal forgiveness. Your sorrow doesn't erase your crimes, I said quietly but loud enough for the crowd to hear. It doesn't restore what you stole. But it's a start. I looked around the square at the hundreds of faces watching. This is my first decree as your empress. Magistrate Chin, you are stripped of your title, your lands, and your authority. You will spend the rest of your life in service to those you harmed. Not as a magistrate, as an equal. Learning what it means to be powerless. Learning empathy. I turned in a slow circle, addressing everyone. This is my promise to you, I said, my voice ringing clear. I will not rule through fear. I will not take vengeance for vengeance's sake. But I will ensure that no child is ever traded again. That no worker is ever treated as lesser. That the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. This is what the Phoenix Empresses stood for. This is what we will build together. The cheering started then, slowly at first, people afraid to believe, afraid to hope, then building, until it was a roar that shook the very stones of the palace. I looked at Kai, standing beside his grandmother, his face filled with pride and love and relief. I looked at Commander Thorne, tears streaming down her scarred face, her fist pressed to her heart in salute. I looked at the crowd, my people, broken and hurting but finally daring to hope. And I knew this was just the beginning. Chapter 19. Coronation. The coronation happened 4 months later. It took that long to establish a transitional government, to root out the worst of the corruption, to begin the long, painful process of healing. There was resistance. Some of the ruling families refused to acknowledge me, tried to rally forces against me. But most saw which way the wind was blowing. Most chose survival over pride. And the people chose me overwhelmingly. Chose hope over fear. Chose change over the comfortable cruelty they'd known. I stood in the throne room where my grandmother had been murdered, wearing robes of crimson and gold, the phoenix colors. The crown they placed on my head was not the ornate thing my grandmother had worn, that had been destroyed in the coup. This crown was simpler, more beautiful, made by the common people from whatever precious things they could spare. Bronze from melted tools, gems from family heirlooms, copper from coins saved over years. Each piece carried a story, a sacrifice, a hope. As the high priest, old Aldrich, who had delivered my mother and had lived to see me crowned, settled it on my brow, I felt the weight of those stories settle with it. May you rule with wisdom, he intoned. May you lead with compassion. May you remember always that a crown is not power, it is responsibility. I will, I promised. The court erupted in cheers, but I barely heard them. Because Kai was kneeling before me, his eyes bright with unshed tears, and in his hands he held something I'd thought lost forever. My mother's compass. I couldn't let you be crowned without it, he said softly. Aldrich repaired the cord. He fastened it around my neck, his fingers gentle. And when the bronze settled against my heart, I felt complete. Oh. I touched his face, not caring that the entire court was watching. Thank you, I whispered. Forever, he reminded me. Forever, I agreed. That night, after the formal ceremonies were done and the court had dispersed, Kai found me in the palace gardens. I was standing beside a newly planted cherry tree, a memorial to those we'd lost and a promise of growth to come. Your Majesty, he said, bowing with exaggerated formality. Don't, I said, turning to face him. Not you. Never you. What should I call you then? How about my name? He smiled, coming closer. Sage then. How does it feel being Empress? Terrifying. Overwhelming. Like I'm going to make 1,000 mistakes and let everyone down. So normal then? I laughed despite myself. Yes. Normal. Good. He took my hands. Because you're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be human. Real. That's what will make you great. I hope you're right. I'm always right, he said, then yelped when I smacked his arm. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. Sage, he said finally. There's something I need to ask you. My heart skipped. What? He dropped to one knee and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I know we're young, he said. I know you just became Empress and there are probably dozens of political reasons this is a terrible idea. But I also know that I've loved you since you were 7 years old. That you're the strongest, bravest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. That every time I look at you I see home. He pulled out a simple ring, bronze. I noticed, the same metal the common people had used for my crown. I'm not asking as a magistrate's grandson, he continued. I'm not offering political alliance or strategic advantage. I'm just asking as myself. As Kai, who loves you, who wants to stand beside you as you change the world, who wants forever to be more than just a promise. Tears were streaming down my face now. Yes, I whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit, and stood pulling me into his arms. We kissed under the stars, and it felt like every moment of pain and fear and struggle had been leading to this. To us. To this perfect, impossible future we were going to build together. The council is going to have opinions, I said when we finally broke apart. Let them, he grinned. You're the Empress. What are they going to do? Overthrow you? Don't even joke about that. Too soon. Way too soon. He laughed and kissed me again. And for that moment, I wasn't an Empress or a revolutionary or the lost heir. I was just Sage, a girl in love, standing in a garden under stars that had watched my grandmother rule and my mother run and now watched me begin again. It was enough. It was everything. Chapter 20. The first year. The first year of my reign was the hardest. Dismantling a system built on oppression turned out to be more complicated than simply declaring it wrong. There were entrenched interests, economic dependencies, entire regions whose wealth was built on the exploitation I'd sworn to end. Some changes were immediate. I banned the trading of children within the first week, with punishments severe enough to make anyone think twice. I established protections for workers. Legal rights, access to education, freedom of movement without sponsorship from the wealthy. Other changes took time. Redistributing the lands seized from families who had participated in the coup. Establishing schools open to all. Training a new generation of leaders who understood that strength came from cooperation, not domination. There were assassination attempts, 4 in the first 8 months alone. Each time my Phoenix gift saved me. I could sense the assassin's intent before they struck. Feel their fear and desperation and misplaced loyalty. I didn't execute them. Imprisonment, yes. Rehabilitation where possible. But not death. I refused to become what I'd fought against. You're too merciful, Commander Thorne warned after the 4th attempt. Eventually, mercy will be seen as weakness. Then let them think I'm weak, I said. I'd rather be weak and right than strong and wrong. She shook her head but smiled. Your grandmother said the same thing once. Drove me mad then too. Kai was my anchor through all of it. Officially, he was my chief advisor. Unofficially, though the entire nation knew, he was my partner in every sense of the word. We married quietly 8 months after my coronation, in a small ceremony attended only by those closest to us. I wore my mother's compass. He wore a bronze band matching my ring. Aldrich officiated, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Your mother would be so proud," he told me afterward. "Both your mothers." The nation was scandalized that I'd married the trader's grandson. But they got over it when they saw how we worked together. How Kai's strategic mind complemented my empathic gifts. How we balanced each other. His practicality tempering my idealism, my compassion softening his harder edges. We were stronger together than either of us could have been alone. That was the point, I realized. That was what my grandmother had understood, what the Phoenix Empresses had always known. Balance. Cooperation. The understanding that no one person, no matter how powerful, could do everything alone. Chapter 21. The Council of Houses. 20 months into my reign, I called the first Council of Houses since my grandmother's death. Representatives from every major family, including those who had supported the coup, gathered in the throne room. The tension was palpable. Many of them still didn't accept my authority, still saw me as an upstart child who'd gotten lucky. I let them murmur and posture and position themselves. Then I stood. "I know what you think of me," I said, my voice carrying through the chamber. "Some of you think I'm too young, too inexperienced, too weak because I spent my childhood in a factory. You're waiting for me to fail. Waiting for an opportunity to reclaim what you think you lost." The murmuring stopped. "But here's what you need to understand," I continued. "This isn't a coup. This isn't a power grab. This is a restoration. I'm not taking something from you, I'm returning something you stole. Not just from my family, but from every person in this nation who has suffered under your rule." I walked down from the dais, moving among them. I could feel their emotions: fear, resentment, grudging respect, and in some cases genuine shame. "I'm not interested in vengeance," I said. "I'm interested in justice. In building a nation where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them. Where workers and nobles work together instead of against each other. Where children can grow up safe and fed and educated, regardless of who their parents were." I stopped before Lord Marquess of House Ironwood, one of the most vocal opponents of my rule. "You lost your wife and son in the coup," I said quietly, fighting for my grandmother. "I know you blame her for their deaths. Blame me by extension." His face was carved from stone. "She should have abdicated. Should have given the ruling families what they wanted. My family would still be alive." "Your wife and son were murdered by the same men who sit in this room," I said, and felt the shock ripple through the chamber. "Lord Blackthorn's forces. House Ravencroft's soldiers. They killed your family because you refused to betray my grandmother. And then they convinced you it was her fault." I reached out with my gift, letting him feel what I felt. The truth of that day, the betrayal, the senseless violence. When I pulled back, there were tears on his weathered cheeks. "I'm sorry," I said, "for your loss. For the lies you've been living with. For all of it. But it's time to stop letting the past poison the future. Your wife and son died believing in something better. Honor them by helping me build it." He stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he knelt. One by one, others followed. Not all of them, there were still holdouts, still those who would never accept me. But enough. Enough to matter. When the council ended, Kai found me in the small study I'd claimed as my personal space. "That was either brilliant or incredibly reckless," he said, handing me a cup of tea. "Both," I suggested. "Probably." He sat beside me. "You know, some of them will never truly accept you. Will spend years looking for ways to undermine you." "I know." I sipped the tea, chamomile my favorite. "But I don't need them to love me. I just need them to understand that the old ways are gone. That we're building something new and they can either be part of it or be left behind." Very regal. "I've been practicing." He smiled and kissed my temple. "How are you really? I know you put on a brave face for the council, but—" "Exhausted," I admitted, leaning into him. "Overwhelmed. Sometimes I wake up and can't believe any of this is real. That I'm actually here, doing this, responsible for millions of people's lives." "You're doing well," he said softly. "Better than anyone could have expected. Better than you give yourself credit for." I made 3 policy mistakes this week alone. The grain distribution in the Eastern Territories is a mess. There's still resistance in the border regions. The Treasury is struggling. Sage. He turned me to face him. "You're 13 years old. You've been Empress for 20 months. You're not going to solve everything overnight. The important thing is that you're trying, that you care, that you're willing to learn from your mistakes. I wanted to argue, to list all the ways I was failing, but the look in his eyes stopped me. I love you, I said instead. I love you too. He pulled me closer. Now stop being Empress for 5 minutes and just be my wife. So I did. I let the weight of the crown fall away, let myself be just Sage, and for those precious moments, everything was simple. Chapter 22. The Reckoning. 3 years into my reign, Victoria came to the palace. I hadn't seen her since the day of my revelation in the square. She'd fled when her grandmother was arrested, disappeared into the countryside. There had been reports, sightings, rumors, but nothing concrete. Now here she was, standing in my throne room under guard, looking gaunt and hollow-eyed. "Why are you here?" I asked. "To face judgment," she said quietly. "For what I did to you. For my part in my grandmother's crimes." I studied her with my gifts, feeling her emotions. Genuine remorse, bone-deep shame, and something else. Exhaustion. The exhaustion of carrying guilt for too long. "Tell me," I said. "What do you think you deserve?" "Death." She said it simply, matter-of-factly. "I knew what my grandmother had done. I helped keep you imprisoned. I took your compass, the only thing you had of your mother, and I gloried in the power it gave me over you. I deserve to die for that." "That's certainly one option," I agreed. "But it's also the easy way out." Her head snapped up. "You want absolution," I continued. "You want to pay your debt and be done with it. Death would be convenient for you. Quick, final. No more guilt. No more shame. No more responsibility." "Your Majesty." "I'm not finished." I stood, walking down from the dais to stand before her. "You hurt me, Victoria. Badly. You took pleasure in my suffering. And part of me, the part that's still that terrified 7-year-old girl, wants to make you suffer the way I suffered." I let her feel that, the rage, the pain, the trauma that still woke me up some nights, gasping and afraid. She flinched but didn't look away. "But I'm not that girl anymore," I said. "And killing you or even imprisoning you doesn't undo what was done. It doesn't heal anyone. It just perpetuates the cycle of pain." "Then what?" Her voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to live," I said. "I want you to spend every day of your life working to undo the harm your family caused. I want you to use your privilege, your education, your name, yes, even your name, to help rebuild what was broken. I want you to become better than you were. To prove that change is possible. That redemption is real." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I don't deserve." "No, you don't," I interrupted. "None of us deserve the chances we get. But we get them anyway. What matters is what we do with them." I reached out and lifted her chin, forcing her to meet my eyes. "You have a choice, Victoria Chin. You can take the easy way, death, punishment, the end of responsibility. Or you can take the hard way, life, service, the daily work of becoming someone your mother could be proud of. What's it going to be?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly she knelt. "I choose the hard way," she whispered. "Teach me. Please teach me how to be better." "I will," I promised. "But first," I held out my hand. "I need something from you." She reached into her coat, confused, and pulled out a familiar bronze compass. "I've been carrying it since that day," she said hoarsely. "Couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Couldn't bring myself to look at it either. A reminder of what I'd done. Who I'd hurt." I took it gently, opened it. The needle still pointed north, unwavering, constant. "Thank you," I said softly, "for keeping it safe. Even if you didn't mean to." "I don't understand you," she said. "I don't understand how you can be this kind after everything." "It's not kindness," I told her. "It's pragmatism. Hate would destroy me. Vengeance would make me into what I fought against. This," I gestured between us, "this is the only way forward for both of us." She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Report to Commander Thorne tomorrow," I said. "She'll assign you to work in the rehabilitation programs in the western provinces. Hard labor, long hours, no special treatment because of your name. You'll be living among the people your family hurt, helping them rebuild. Can you handle that?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "Good. And Victoria?" I waited until she looked up. "Your mother, your real mother, she would want this for you. The chance to be better. Don't waste it." "I won't," she promised. After she left, Kai emerged from the side chamber where he'd been listening. "That was either the most foolish or the most brilliant thing you've done as Empress," he said. "You keep saying that," I pointed out. "You keep doing things that make me say it." He smiled. But for what it's worth, I think my sister needed to hear that. Needed to know that forgiveness was possible. That she wasn't beyond redemption. No one is, I said. That's the point. That's what my grandmother understood. What my mother tried to teach by example. We're all capable of both terrible cruelty and extraordinary kindness. The system we build should encourage the latter, not reward the former. Speaking of systems, Kai pulled out a stack of papers. The new education reforms are ready for your review, and the Agricultural Council wants to meet about the drought in the Southern Territories, and there's a border dispute that needs. Later, I said, taking the papers and setting them aside. Right now I need to do something more important. More important than running a nation? Much more important. I led him to the gardens, to the cherry tree we'd planted, to the memorial that had grown into something more, a symbol of hope, of new beginnings. I opened the compass and looked at the needle one more time, always pointing north, always true. Then I closed it and fastened it around my neck where it belonged. She would be proud of you, Kai said softly. I hope so. I leaned back against him, his arms coming around me. I hope they both would be. My mother and my grandmother. I hope they can see what we're building. What we're becoming. They can, he said with certainty. And they are. Chapter 23. Legacy. We stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the city beyond the palace walls, children were playing, markets were closing, families were gathering for dinner. The nation was healing. Slowly, imperfectly, with setbacks and struggles and hard-fought progress, but healing. And I was part of that. Not separate, not above, part of it. Empress Sage, Phoenix of Stormhaven, daughter of Lien, granddaughter of Zara. But also just Sage. A girl who had been traded and broken and told she was worthless, who had refused to believe it, who had fought and loved and survived and built something beautiful from the ashes of her pain. That was my true power. Not the healing gift, not the royal blood, but the choice I made every single day. To be better than my worst moments. To believe in the possibility of change. To see the humanity in everyone, even those who had hurt me. That was what being Phoenix meant. And I would spend the rest of my life proving it. Epilogue. 7 years later. 7 years have passed since my coronation. I am 20 years old now, no longer the child who escaped into the night or even the 13-year-old who reclaimed her throne. The nation is healing. Not healed, that would be too simple, too neat, but healing. Making progress. Moving forward. The education reforms have taken root. There are schools in every province now, open to all regardless of birth or wealth. I visit them when I can, watching children learn to read, seeing the wonder in their eyes when they realize the world is bigger than what they've been told. The economic reforms have been harder. Redistributing wealth never pleases those who have it. But slowly, painfully, we're building an economy that doesn't depend on exploitation, that values labor fairly, that gives everyone a chance to rise. There are still problems. The border territories are restless. Some of the old families still plot and scheme. There's unrest in the north that's testing all our resources. Trade disputes with neighboring nations. 100 small crises that make up the daily work of rule. But there are victories too. Last month I received a letter from a village in the west. A group of workers had pooled their resources and opened a healing center, using the Phoenix techniques I'd been teaching. They were helping their community, earning respect, building something of their own. You've changed our lives, they wrote. Our children will grow up free. Thank you. I cried when I read it. Happy tears. Proud tears. Kai found me with the letter clutched in my hands, probably looking ridiculous. Good news? He asked, already knowing the answer. The best news, I said, showing him. He read it and smiled. That gentle smile I love. See? You're doing it. Actually changing the world. We're doing it, I corrected. I couldn't do any of this without you. I know, he said, completely serious. Then he grinned when I swatted him. We have a son now. Born 2 years ago, with Kai's dark hair and my eyes and a temperament that suggests he inherited both our stubbornness. We named him Aldrich, after the old advisor who delivered my mother and lived to see me crowned, who died peacefully in his sleep last year at the age of 87. Young Aldrich has the Phoenix gift. I can feel it in him. That same warmth, that same empathic sensitivity. He cries when others cry, laughs when others laugh. At 2 years old, he already has more compassion in his tiny body than most adults manage in a lifetime. He will be emperor someday, but not for a long time, God's willing. For now he's just a child, playing in the gardens, learning to walk, living the childhood I never had. That alone makes everything worth it. Today is the anniversary of my coronation. 7 years. They're planning celebrations, parades, festivals, the whole grand spectacle. But before all that, I slip away to the memorial garden, to the cherry tree that's now tall and strong, its branches heavy with blossoms. Commander Thorne is already there. She's older now, moving slower but still sharp. Still my most trusted advisor. "Morning, Your Majesty," she says. "Morning, Thorne." I stand beside her, looking at the tree. "Do you ever think about that day when I walked into your camp and announced I was the lost heir?" She laughs. "I thought you were either insane or the bravest person I'd ever met. And now?" "Both," she says. "Definitely both." We stand in comfortable silence for a moment. "She would be proud," Thorne says quietly. "Your grandmother. I served her for 15 years, and I never saw her happier than when she was helping her people, when she was making a real difference. You have that same joy. That same purpose." "I inherited it from her," I say, "along with the throne and the responsibilities and the constant anxiety." "That too," Thorne agrees. "Being a good ruler means never being certain you're doing it right. The moment you stop questioning yourself is the moment you become a tyrant." "Comforting," I say dryly. "I'm old. I don't have to be comforting anymore." I laugh and it feels good. Easy. Natural. Kai appears as if summoned by my thoughts. Aldrich is on his shoulders, giggling, his tiny hands tangled in his father's hair. "Mama," he shouts, reaching for me. "Crown day. Papa says there's cake." "There is definitely cake," I confirm, taking him from Kai and settling him on my hip. "But first we have to smile and wave at a lot of people." "I good at waving." He demonstrates enthusiastically. "The best," Kai agrees, kissing his forehead. Then he looks at me. "You good?" "I'm good," I say. And I mean it. We walk together toward the palace, toward the crowds, toward the celebration. Thorne follows behind, along with the other advisors and guards and officials who make up my court. But for a moment it's just us. Just our family. Walking through gardens where cherry trees grow and children play and hope is real. I am Sage. I was traded at 7 years old for 20 bushels of grain. I was told I was worthless, powerless, nothing. They were wrong. I became the girl who healed the broken, who reclaimed a stolen throne, who changed a nation through compassion instead of cruelty. I became an empress. But more than that, I became myself, fully, completely, without apology. And that, I've learned, is the greatest power of all. The world ended for me on my 7th birthday. But today it's more alive than ever. And I'm just getting started. The end.